So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, my name is Muhammad Faisal. I'm the chief examiner and the head of the departments over here at Nafi. So, the conversation medium is going to be in English. If at any given point in time, if you feel that uh, you need time to answer the question, please do so. Okay. So, just raise your hand or something like that, or just tell me, like, can you please give me 1 minute to think before I can answer the question. Always take time, understand the question what I'm asking you for, okay, and then give me an answer. Don't jump immediately. Excuse me. I still have a sore throat, so still recovering. Excuse me. So the topic that you have, so you have to state your name, the diploma you're studying right now, and the topic you have. So please proceed, Junaid.
Okay, so should I open the presentation at my side?
First, state your name because this is being recorded, so that
Okay, so
it becomes
my
yes.
name is Hafiz Muhammad Junaid, and I am here to for the presentation the level 6 exam, and presentation title is Design and Manage Secure Kubernetes Cluster on AWS by following a well-architected framework of AWS.
Okay, that's good. Just wanted to let you know a couple of things. If at any given point in time, if you since this is basically a live session that you and me are having, this is being recorded right now. If you if there's any kind of electricity load shedding or anything like that, and you lose internet connectivity or power or whatever the case is, please call us immediately because we will wait for you for at least 5 to 10 minutes before we wrap it up. And then we will have to give you another chance to present this and continue it from that point onwards. Okay. I hope that doesn't happen. Hopefully. Okay. So you stated your name. You're studying diploma in artificial intelligence operations. Is that correct?
Yes.
I can see on my side that you have completed all the EduQual exams part 1, the MCQs part, the assignments and all of that,
Yes.
right? Okay. All right. So proceed, please. If you can share your screen, and you have 15 minutes to present, followed by my questions that I'm going to ask you for 15, 25 to 30 minutes. You have precisely 15 minutes. Proceed.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So basically, here is the first slide that I would talk about. The objective of this presentation is to explore that how we can create a secure, efficient infrastructure on AWS by using Kubernetes. And the key focus areas that I will be talking about, first one is security in Kubernetes on AWS. Like, for example, what are the tools and services of AWS that I can integrate with Kubernetes to make the infrastructure more secure. Secondly is optimization for cost and performance. So here I will talk about that which techniques or which resources we can use to save our cost from the infrastructure. And thirdly, the best practices for cloud deployment.
Okay. Next slide.
Okay, so here firstly I will talk about the Kubernetes and AWS essential components that I will need to create the whole infrastructure. So firstly, I will define them, and next we will continue later. So here, okay. So here, firstly, I will talk about the components of Kubernetes. In these components, the majorly services that I will be using are pods, deployments, and services. First of all, what is pod? So here you can see that in the left diagram, you can see that here is a pod and it's in the lower level. So pod basically contains containers. and it depends that how many containers we can accommodate in one pod. There can be one container or there can be multiple containers we can run in a single pod. So and container is the thing or is the component where our application code will be running. So secondly, what is a deployment? So again, in the diagram, you can see that the deployment is on the upper layer. So deployment is the component of Kubernetes that has the responsibility and capability to manage all the pods that are running in the infrastructure. So deployment control pods with the help of replica set. Basically, we know that how many pods we are running in the infrastructure, and it's the policy we define of pods running all the time. So deployment has the responsibility to make sure that 24/7 the required number of pods is running all the time. So in case if there is any mishap happened, like for example the pod is down or terminated due to any reason, then a deployment has the responsibility to create a replica of that pod and make that running. And third component of Kubernetes is service. So service is the medium between traffic and pods. uh, it basically it's like a route table. It routes the traffic from the internet to the pod, and in the pod there is a container which is running your application. So your application will be accessed by the customers on internet through the component that is called as service. So these are the major components of Kubernetes. Now I will talk about the AWS components. So first one is EKS. EKS stands for Elastic Kubernetes Service. As the name is saying that it's about Kubernetes. So AWS has created its own service which we can use to run Kubernetes on AWS. So by doing so, we only have to focus on the application development on the AWS infrastructure. So what is happening behind, like the patches or the updates to the infrastructure, all are managed by the AWS on its own. We don't have to manage them at all. So by using EKS, we only have to focus on the application deployment on the infrastructure. Secondly, second component is EC2. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Container. So it's basically the compute power that Kubernetes will be using to run pods. EC2 contains the CPUs or RAM that are needed to run our application. Thirdly is VPC. VPC means Virtual Private Cloud. It's basically a small portion within a cloud. Basically, in simple words, I would say that it's a small cloud within a cloud, and it's the playground for us where we can configure everything according to our needs. So it's where we will define that. So lastly, IAM service. It means that uh, identity and access management. So it's the service we will be using to make our whole infrastructure secure by implementing the least privileges. So here, now I will move to the second uh, slide. Security best practices in Kubernetes. So what are the best practices that Kubernetes provide us to make our infrastructure secure? So firstly, Kubernetes provide us network policies. Network policy is basically the thing or basically the service that controls the traffic between the pods. So if you don't if you don't apply network policy onto any pod, then all the pods into your cluster will be allowed to communicate with each other. So but it's not a right way to do. So that's why we use network policies to limit the communication between the pods. For example, if we are running we are running database onto a pod. So we don't want any other pod to communicate with this database pod instead of just one application pod. So we will apply a network policy on database pod After that, this port will just accept the traffic from the one port that we uh, have given him, we have allowed it. So yeah. And second practice is secrets management. Kubernetes has a service of secrets management where the confidential information we can save in these secrets, and Kubernetes save these secrets into the etcd database of Kubernetes. Like in our application code, we it's not a good practice to write down the confidential data into the code, because if there will be any hacker or any unauthorized access to your code, then your confidential data will also be accessed by those hackers. So to prevent this, what we do is we secure or save these confidential information into other portion, so that if any hacker has accessed our code, he will not be able to access the confidential data. So secrets are the services. Secrets is the service that help us to secure our confidential data into another side. Third one is RBAC. So in previous slide, case with RBAC here in terms of Kubernetes, RBAC stands for role-based access control. So what it does is it implements some limits to the roles or to the users, so that they can only access few services that we allowed them. So basically, RBAC is here to apply this privilege.
Okay, you have less time
Next
available.
one. In this slide,
Junaid, you have only
okay.
few
So
minutes
here
available.
I will discuss about
Just wait, please. Uh,
AWS security for Kubernetes.
can you hear me, Junaid?
Yes,
Hear me? Okay,
yes,
so
I can
you
hear you.
have altogether 18 slides, and you have spent time for the past few minutes in terms of like till slide 5, right? I'm going to ask you quickly to just go through them so that I can start the Q&A session, because in the Q&A section, I will be asking some very specific technical questions related to all the things that you've mentioned here, right? Okay, so I understand the VPC part, the
Okay.
AWS, the Kubernetes. I'm going to lead this myself. So AWS security for Kubernetes, right? Explain to me quickly
Yes.
in 1 minute this slide, quickly. AWS security for Kubernetes, what does AWS does to make sure that the Kubernetes cluster pods, all of those things, the configuration files, everything is secure and compliant? What does it do? Uh, Quickly explain
Yes.
to me in 1 minute this whole slide. You
Okay,
have one
so
minute, remember.
AWS, yes, AWS, by using AWS services, what we are doing is basically we are adding more layers of security around the Kubernetes infrastructure. Like there are services of AWS IAM service, VPC isolation method, or CloudWatch or CloudTrail services, and lastly AWS config service. So these are the services that we can use with Kubernetes to
I'm losing the
at the
voice.
networking part, and also for the monitoring and observability purposes, we can use CloudWatch. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay. All right. So the next thing I'm going to ask you is we can skip the compliance and governance part because you've already covered that adequately within the coursework and the questions and everything. I'm going to
Yes.
ask you quickly the AWS Well Architect Framework. Explain to me the Well Architect Framework quickly, because there are follow-up questions I'm going to ask you. Just explain to me what is the Well Architect Framework is over here.
Well, architect framework is the guide that is designed by the AWS to help the cloud architects so that they can build the secure and high performing cost optimizing infrastructure on AWS. So AWS designed about 6 pillars in this framework that every cloud architect has to follow, so that by implementing these pillars to their infrastructure, they can build highly secure, highly reliable, a highly operationally excellent and cost optimized infrastructure on AWS.
Okay, that's good. We can skip the part of security excellence because I'll be asking you specific questions regarding that, right? Reliability, performance, efficiency, and everything, cost optimizations, sustainability, okay. The topic was basically design and manage secure Kubernetes cluster on AWS, right? A well-architected approach. So
Yes.
you mentioned some of the areas. I'm going to ask those specific questions later on. What is the, the hypothetical diagram you have built up to show this is the architecture of how, if I have to design, this is how I will do it. Do you have any diagram to show that I see if there are specific, hypothetical requirements of an organization to create an architecture on AWS? This is how it should be done. Do you have anything that you can show me?
I'm sorry, I didn't add the diagram to the slides.
So let this be like a very important point. You have to show some kind of, hypothetical diagram, right? You can even borrow it from AWS. Well, I mean, you showed some of the things in the beginning, the cluster, the pod, and all of those things. But you have to show, in an essence, there's a lot of high level diagrams and low level diagrams in terms of like from AWS to show how the AWS architecture really looks like on when EKS services are running. Okay, so that was something I wanted to see. It's not there. Okay. We're going to jump directly to the questions because now I'm running out of time because now the Q&A session needs to start. So explain to me the first part, which is you mentioned key areas of AWS, right? So for the Kubernetes deployment, you mentioned there are two services. There's a deployment service, and then there's a replication service, right? The replica set, as they call it.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
This is in your cluster.
Yes.
So what is the difference between both of them?
Difference between deployment pod.
Yes, and the replica. What is the difference between deployment service and replication service?
Okay, so deployment service is on the above level, like it's on the it's a bigger umbrella. It controls the scalability and security of the pods with the help of replica set. So what we does is we write in a YAML language the whole scenario to make the deployment and replica set. And here we mention that how many replicas of the pods we want every time to be run. And also so in the replica set, as the name is showing that the replica set means replicas. So in replica set we mention the number of the replicas we need, and also we mention the name of the pod, the label of the pod, and then replica set label we mention into the deployment. So deployment is on the bigger picture. It is controlling the pods with the help of replica sets.
Okay. What do you call Helm charts?
Okay, Helm charts is basically a repository of the Kubernetes. Here we have all the YAML files, like all the YAML files that we need for infrastructure. Like for example, for services, the YAML files are here in Helm chart. For pods, for deployments, for network policies. So all the YAML files, all the services that we need to make our infrastructure, all are present in the repository of Helm chart. So it makes our task very easy. Like we don't have to run every component of the infrastructure separately. We only install the repository from the Helm chart, and when we execute that repository by making some very small changings according to our need, so Helm chart deploy our whole infrastructure in one click.
Okay, so how do you secure the Helm charts? How can you secure the Helm charts? Or what are the best practices we should follow as per the well architect approach to ensure that the Helm charts are secure? Because that's where all the crucial configuration files resides, right? So how do we secure that?
Yes. Firstly, we can use secure code practices like the code that is going to be run into our infrastructure is well written. And secondly, what we can do is the replica sets files or every file that is present in the Helm chart is fulfilling our needs of the infrastructure. So also we can make sure that the EC2 instances that we are going to use for the infrastructure are well equipped with the computational power, so that we will not face any downtime later.
I mean, the proper answer is like using private repositories. This is the best thing to do to reduce the risk of introducing malicious codes into the Helm charts, signing and verifying the charts through digital signatures and stuff like that. Updating and managing the dependencies very carefully, because sometimes the developers, they rush through the code, right? And because of that, they can make mistakes, they can commit mistakes. So regularly review and update the dependencies to secure versions. Version checking is very important. So there's a litany of things, and the most important thing is like security scanning. How do you
Yeah,
do?
we can use some security scanning tools like Clear that make sure that the image or the repository
What are the tools? Like
that
there's so many tools available. Like one of the tools is Trivy, which is something that you can use
the
to,
Docker image that we are going to use is
yeah, like container images, right? So just quickly scan the container images to see what is happening, like if there are any security vulnerabilities. There's also a practice known as linting. You know what is linting? Can you explain to me what linting is?
LinkedIn.
Linting, Linting. It's a process to it,
Sorry, I don't know.
it's an it's a process through which you can identify issues with chart syntax or configurations that could lead to potential security vulnerabilities, right? So that's a process that is being followed actually. Okay, now there's another question I have. I'm going to go back to your presentation because that's where I'm driving all the questions from. Uh, what is the role of network policies? I mean, what is the number one rule that we use for VPC when defining the network policies?
Uh, okay, so network policy is like securing the communication between pods. It's like securing your internal structure of the Kubernetes. And when it's about VPC, then here the service that we can relate with the
No,
network
no,
policy is
no, no, no,
called
no,
as
no.
secure.
No, no. I'm not asking the definition. I'm asking you the specific network rule policy. What is the policy requirement? The number one principle that you follow. The number one principle
Follow
when you start working on the designing the network policy, and you log into the Amazon and you see the
okay.
EKS, what do you see? What is the number one thing you see over there and say, okay, that's what I need to follow because it's already implemented. Okay, the answer, I'm going to tell you the answer.
Firstly,
The answer is
firstly, I will isolate the VPC, and then I will follow the other processes
I'm
after
asking
that.
about the principle. I'm not asking about the methodology of how you do it. I'm asking about the principle. The principle is, deny all. Do not trust anything.
Okay.
That's how you start when you're designing the network policy. By default, everything is closed down, right? By default, everything is disabled. You only enable what you need, right? And that's the practice that you have to follow. This is also known as the zero trust model, right? You don't trust
Yes.
anything, right? So that's something which is very important for you. Okay, the next question I have is basically, okay, the next question I have, question number 7, is regarding CloudWatch and CloudTrail, right? Why monitoring and auditing is important when it comes to EKS in line with AWS well architecture approach?
Okay, so monitoring has so much importance because the Cloud Watch service provided by the AWS, it's telling us all the time that how our whole infrastructure is working and how operations are going on, and also CloudTrail has the task to monitor and to track every configuration step that is happening into infrastructure. So it's a must to monitor your whole infrastructure all the time, because by doing so you will be in a position to detect any vulnerability or any unauthorized access that is trying by someone, or that is going to happen. So you can trace them before time, and you can perform some actions on that to make your infrastructure secure.
Okay. Uh, the other question I have is like compliance and governance, right? You mentioned compliance and governance over here with respect to Kubernetes, right? If the organizations are working for a financial industry, which is specifically dealing with credit cards, what is the standard that they have to follow to secure their EKS?
Okay, so if they are
I'm just
dealing
asking the
with
name of the
the,
standard. I'm just asking the name
yes,
of the standard.
the framework's name is PCI DSS.
Yes,
So it's
that's my question. That's it. I mean, you're done, right? So just be specific, because these are some specific questions I'm going to ask you. Okay. Now, if it's a bank and a payment card processor, what other regulations they have to follow apart from PCI DSS? And the bank is based in US.
okay. So if the bank is based in US, and there are some customers in the bank that are from the US, and and also if the bank is dealing with the patient's data, then they will have to comply with the framework that is called as HIPAA. So
No, no,
HIPAA is
bank
the
is not
framework.
dealing. Look, this is a bank. Bank is not, first of all, bank is based in the States. That means that it's not going to have some customers in States, but all the customers belongs to the, because it's a US bank. US bank means it is on US soil. And it doesn't, and the banks normally don't keep any financial, like any health care information about their, about
I
patients.
thought maybe about insurance or something like that.
No, 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 no. HIPAA information is only resides at the hospitals, right? And the clinics. And that's patient information, patient chart, patient data, that kind of stuff. Okay. Uh, the answer is basically the FFI, EC, and other local legislations and federal legislations that they have to follow as per the basically the banking regulations and the PCI DSS. Okay. All right. So
Okay. Okay. By the way, only two frameworks were included in my uh, presentation, that were HIPAA and GDPR. Okay, it's okay.
no, no, no. I mean, you mentioned them yourself. It's right. It's fine. It's okay. This was a bonus question, by the way. I'm not going to negate you for that. Don't worry about
Yes.
it. Okay? All right. So the next thing I have is basically, um, what is the difference between compliance and governance?
Okay. So compliance basically is there are some rules that are there are some rules from any framework that you have to follow, that you have to implement into your organization, into your operations. And governance is about observing or monitoring that everything is going fine or not, or is there anything that is not going to be comply with the framework.
Okay. Uh, I'm going to ask you using namespaces to isolate releases, right? In the Kubernetes, because the questions are going to come from all over the place. Uh, what can you use to limit the scope of access and impact? what is the tool that we use? What is the process that we call, deploying when deploying applications in separate Kubernetes namespaces? What do we use to limit the scope of the access and the impact of that specific deployment release?
Okay, we use RBAC component of the Kubernetes. Should I explain more?
We use using Helm to limit the scope of the access and the impact. This helps in managing the security permissions at a much more granified level and isolate applications from each other. So Helm is being used basically. Okay. All right. So
Okay.
the other question I have is like, what can you use? What options do you have at your disposal to secure value files?
To secure what?
Value files.
Value files.
Yes.
Okay. So we can here we can
Value
use
files means
the
like, that's where the secrets are, right? So
yes,
password.
yes. I have understood. So
Yes.
here, what we can use is the encryption technique, like by encrypting the confidential data of these files, we can
Asking you
change the.
specifically, what do you use? Not encryption. What encryption? I mean, are we using what are we using? What kind of encryption are we using? It has to be specific. Are we using PGP? Are we using AES? Are we using like what are the specific encryption standards we have to follow? Okay, let's do this. Are we going to use a public key or private key encryption for securing secret files?
Okay, so here we are using both the keys, public key and private key. Public key is basically to encrypt the data, and private key is to decrypt it.
Okay. What can we use to avoid hard coding secrets within the secure value files? I mean, what do you recommend? Should we hard code any sensitive data directly into
No,
the?
not at all. We shouldn't hard code any sensitive data. Uh,
Okay, good.
we should use the Kubernetes secrets if we are making our infrastructure onto Kubernetes. We can use Kubernetes secrets to secure this data, this confidential data outside from the file or the application code. And also we can use the service by the AWS that is called as KMS, and KMS is the service that will encrypt these secrets of the Kubernetes, and then will save them into the etcd database of Kubernetes.
Excellent, excellent. Good job. Okay, the other question I have is, as per your presentation, where should we embed the security within this whole place? I mean, what do you call that thing? Is it like a pipeline? I'm giving you like, where should we implement the security? Where should we integrate the security?
Yes, we should integrate the security in any operation into our infrastructure that needs the security. Like for example, if we are using the CI/CD pipelines in our infrastructure, then security should be embedded into that. Like we can embed some tools to scan the images that are going to be run into the pods. And if we are using the ISC technique, like infrastructure as code technique, then yes, we can also use the security here in these tools called AWS Cloud Formation and Terraform. So it depends. It's not a hard code rule that only one thing or two things need security. It depends on the infrastructure needs.
I mean, essentially, you have to integrate the security at the code level. So the CI/CD pipelines, the continuous integration and the continuous deployment is where you should deploy the security, integrate the security, right? That's where
Yes.
like the security checks, the linting, the security scanning to potentially catch vulnerabilities, whatever, like, right? So that's where you need
Okay,
to.
we can also use Clear tool here in CI/CD pipelines. Yes, LinkedIn is the tool, but we can also use
There are
Clear,
many
and
tools.
there are some more tools as well.
Okay. there's another question I have, right? Hold on. Looking at your presentation, I have to devise all the things. Um, so why should organizations follow the AWS Well Architect framework? Like, what is the most important thing that the organizations are concerned about? Out of all of these 5 pillars, what is the most important thing?
The most important
Which
thing,
comes which comes first every time? Which comes first every time?
yes, firstly, I will rank the cost optimization pillar,
Yes.
and secondly, the security. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'm just taking notes. Okay. Yeah, so the most important principle for any organization is basically out of all these 5, all these 5s are important, but cost optimization and security is number 1 and number 2. And then we have reliability, operation efficiency,
Yes.
operational excellence, everything. Okay. The other thing I have is, let me go back to your presentation. So you mentioned case study of Netflix. Explain to me this slide on your presentation, the Netflix case study.
Okay, so this is the one case study about Netflix. There are a lot of many others. Netflix is basically the backbone of the Netflix whole infrastructure. Is the few services of AWS like Amazon EC2, Amazon S3, and AWS Lambda. So these are the backbones. So Netflix also implemented the AWS well architected framework, and then the organization reported that they saved about 50% of the cost in the infrastructure level, and 30% reduction of the cost in the operational levels. So that's what the framework guides the cloud architectures, that how you can optimize your whole infrastructure to save the extra costs.
Okay. So why organizations should follow, if they have 2 options, one is the cloud option, just the EC2 instance, the other one is Kubernetes option, which ones they should follow and why?
Okay, firstly, you said about EC2. Am I right?
Yeah, EC2, like that's just like
Okay.
having a web server, right? So
Okay.
having a web
So
server versus containers, I mean, which one is?
yes, yes. So organizations, when you are creating your infrastructure about Kubernetes on AWS, then you are basically using EC2 there, because in first slide the pods that I mentioned about, pods are the smallest unit in Kubernetes, and pods are running into the EC2 instances. So here, if I go to the first slide, here you can see that there is a cluster of Kubernetes. Then there is one layer that is missing. That is called as okay. Here is the cluster, and here is the node. Node is basically the EC2 here, and inside the node, then there is deployment, and then there is pods. So here in Kubernetes, node is basically the second name of node is EC2.
No. I'm asking you why organizations should consider deploying their applications on as containers rather than as on EC2 instances. Why?
Okay, because containers can be easily manageable, can be easily scalable, and deployable with the help of orchestration tool. But
Yeah.
if we talk about the EC2 instances, then you can't manage them with the help of Kubernetes. So that's why it's the need of the Kubernetes to use containers inside Kubernetes instead of directly EC2 instances.
Okay, these last two questions are going to be from 2.5 and 2.5, so almost carry 5 marks, right? So just be careful what you answer because this is going to dictate many things. These are, if I have to sum it up, all of those things, I just want to make sure, like, you do all of that properly. Just give me 1 minute. Let me check one file, and then I will get back to you. Hold on. Okay. So the first question I'm going to ask you, hold on. Explain to me the advanced integration of Kubernetes systems security with AWS IAM, right? Specifically. So can you describe to me a detailed architecture for a Kubernetes cluster on AWS that utilizes both Kubernetes RBAC and the AWS IAM, okay? To enforce security at both the container and the cloud resources level, both the container and the cloud resources level.
Okay.
Explain how this architecture can ensure that the security policies are both effective and aligned as per the organization, business, and compliance objectives across Kubernetes environments and the AWS services. Okay, it's a very detailed question. I can give you that question because I wrote it down prior to coming in here. I'm going to give you this question right now in the chat. If you want to read it, read it. Think hard before you answer, because previously I was only asking you questions which are 0.5, 1 mark and stuff like that. This is 2.5 marks, right? So it's a loaded question. And then there is another one, okay? So explain to me, please, if you can.
Okay, so I need few seconds to think about.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time. As at a high level, just explain to me that in this architecture of Kubernetes cluster is deployed on the Amazon EKS environment, where I will configure the AWS IAM configuration. How will I do that? And then configure the Kubernetes configuration, and how will I do that? And then how will I do the security alignment of them together, right? And
Okay.
why?
Okay. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So as I decided to use the Kubernetes and AWS both together. So firstly, after creating the separate VPC, I will use EC2 instances to launch to use for my Kubernetes in EKS. So here, when it comes about the security, then yes, there are two services that I can use. Firstly, RBAC, and secondly, the IAM service. So IAM service is the bigger service, and it goes more granularly, but RBAC is the basic one. So RBAC provides access management. RBAC provides security into the internal structure of the Kubernetes, like inside the Kubernetes, the services or the components that are running.
The pods, the
Those
clusters, all
services
of
or
it.
components I can, yes, the pods, the services, the deployments, anything, network policies, anything that is running inside the Kubernetes, to make them secure. I can use RBAC component. What RBAC will do is it will limit the permissions of the users. It will implement the least privilege, so that the user can only access those resources that I want to use them. And secondly, when I talk about the IAM service, then it basically secures the Kubernetes as well as the AWS cloud infrastructure whole. How it can do is, the pods that are running inside the Kubernetes. These pods are basically running inside the EC2 instances, because these are the nodes that we borrowed from the AWS. So to secure these nodes, I will use. Oh, okay. So I'm telling about security groups, but it was not in the question. So okay, IAM service, IAM also works like the RBAC. because it implements the least privileges, and also it minimizes it also stops the unauthorized access to all the services and components that I am using inside the AWS. So like for example, if I am using the EC2 instances with the EKS, then I can make secure these EC2 instances with the help of IAM. I will create some policies that will adhere to the secure policies that I want to implement on, so that no one can access to these resources like EC2, or if any database that I'm using with the Kubernetes. It can be RDS, or it can be AWS S3 service. So these services that I'm using with Kubernetes, I can make them secure as well with the help of IAM service.
So
So
one of the thing is basically
in simple words, I
one of
am
the things is that the reason we have to use the reason I ask you to give me why we should use the RBAC service natively within Kubernetes and IAM is it's a security alignment. It's a, you can say it's a structured security control where we are using, it's a dual layer security, right? Which prevents privilege
exactly.
escalation and limits the blast radius. You know, when the network goes down or if it's compromised, it depends on how big the blast is, right? So you need to control the blast. So the blast radius was important, right? So in
Yes,
case of a compromised
yes,
part or a service account, because if the service account is compromised, everything goes down, right? Because that's the key,
yes, exactly. And
right? Exactly.
here, if I can show
This is
you,
where I
if you
put out the question. So you need to make sure that you use it in a way to secure it, right? Okay. The second question I have is discuss how you would configure and manage a Kubernetes cluster on AWS to meet stringent compliance requirements such as HIPAA or GDPR, and detail, the specific AWS and Kubernetes features you would use to monitor, log, and ensure compliance across the entire infrastructure, right? So explain to me first,
okay,
what do you do? What are the key areas you will focus on, right? What are the key core requirements? And there are like 5 key requirements, 4 to 5. Well, there can be many, but only emphasize and give me 5, right? So,
exactly.
which ones will you focus on?
Okay, so firstly, these are the rules. Basically, these are the same rules by both the frameworks, encryption or vulnerability scanning or network traffic scanning. So these are the rules that firstly I will implement into my infrastructure. So these are the rules that I will have to implement manually. Once I have compliant with all these rules, then there are some services, very important AWS services that I will use for observing whole my infrastructure, whether it's going compliance with these frameworks or not. Like for example, there are some services like AWS config and AWS CloudTrail. So these are the services that has the already made capability by the AWS that they can scan or they can monitor your whole infrastructure already. Like there are some rules already written into these services about HIPAA or about GDPR. So when I will use these services, then these services will make sure that my infrastructure uh, should be comply with these rules. If anything happens that is out of syllabus, or if any component of my infrastructure is going to be uncompliant, then this service firstly makes an alarm and notifies the administrators that there are something out of the syllabus happening. Or secondly, there are features of these services that they can automatically reverse those configuration steps and and realign our whole infrastructure according to these frameworks.
Okay. So normally I don't do that, but I'm going to tell you right now. Uh, of all the interviews I've taken, Junaid, your interview so far has been the best. Okay.
Thank you.
And I congratulate you, take this opportunity to congratulate you in terms of passing this interview with good flying colors, I would say. Okay. So that's something I wanted
Thank
to
you.
say that. Okay. Can we stop the sharing of the screen? Like it's showing a very distorted image. Um, you have passed your exam, and you not only have passed the exam, but they're good. The only feedback I'm going to give it to you is that basically, since I have a little bit of time, the presentation was, the Q&A session was very good. You were able to tackle all the questions, right? Um, the presentation section was where like you were penalized because you were using darker fonts, and, um, and you were emphasizing a lot on a given slide. You only had 15 minutes, so you have to breeze through quickly, right? And that's where like you were going
Yeah.
into in too much detail. But then again, still you scored well over there as well, right? So all in all, I would say this was good exam by you. Do you have any questions for me?
Uh, no question, but I want to talk about the explanation that I was explaining about these slides, because I was not sure that maybe I will be given 15 minutes. I thought that maybe I can grab about 30 to 40 minutes for explaining these slides. So that's why I was taking
Only
a lot of time.
So these interviews are designed in a way, just like when you go out for a job, right? Our qualifications, the EduQual exam is designed. We have a Pearson exam coming up as well. Pearson is all assignment. You submit assignment, that's it, you're done, right? The EduQual is all about MCQs and your presentation and interview. There's also a third part we are about to increase and add in there, which is basically the Al Razak labs, right? Where you have to complete the tasks and submit it to us as assignments. That is going to be a given. So we're going to push everyone to do those tasks, because what we want is we want each and every of our student to be able to secure jobs. We just don't want to just hand over you the diploma. No, we want to make sure that you secure the job. And that's why getting into Al Razak is very important. And that can only be done by passing part one and part two. So you pass the part one, the results are being compiled and they will come back to me. The director of academic affairs is working on that, he and his team. But my job is to ensure that you went through this thing. I believe that you have scored good marks. Your presentation was good. The way you explained was good. The communication skills are good. All in all, in my view, this is a very good, I would say, presentation, an interview by one of the students uh, for the AI Ops. So far, I would say this is a very good one. Uh, so the process is going to be that once we compile all the results, it will take us a few weeks. We send the results to EduQual, and then the EduQual will issue you the diploma, right? Okay. So that is
Okay.
the process. The director of academic affairs the academic affairs will explain to you all the things, right, in an email as well. But I just wanted to take this opportunity. I'm very happy. I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell you your results right now, right? Because you deserved it. You worked really hard in terms of completing everything. And now it is high time that you get into the industry and start working, right? So I'm really, really happy. I'm really pleased. And I'm really excited to see you getting into starting your professional career at an earlier age and, making us all proud for the industry. I
Inshallah.
believe that in whatever organization you work, you'll be one of the most prized employee working in that organization. Okay. All right. So this meeting is over. What's his name? Yusuf. So we can wrap this up. I'm going to compile my results and make sure that the rubric is complete, and I will send it over to you. Okay.
Yes, and lastly, sir, as the meeting was not in my native language, so that's why it was a little bit hard for me to explain everything.
No, it's okay. English is not the first language for any person sitting over here, right? But at the end of the day, you did basically communicated very well. The most important thing is like, how were you able to take the questions? So in my view, You were able to tackle all the technical questions very well, right? For the other emotional intelligence part and other things, you have to complete. I'm sure, like you have completed the HR training module in there as well, and the emotional intelligence
Yes, I did.
as well. That's very important for you. And you have already been nominated into the Razzak program. And as I said, EduQual, we are getting accreditation with the Pearson as well right now as we speak. That will be done. But Pearson doesn't have the EduQual because the EduQual gives us the flexibility to, modify our diplomas as per the job market, right? So the way that we have interviewed you is exactly precisely the way that the organizations are going to interview you, right? So whatever job you're doing, whatever project you're doing, that's how you have to communicate. And along the way, you will make it much better and you will improve your communication skills. So I'm happy.
Exactly.
All right, okay. All right, Yusuf, any questions?
No questions. I believe this is it for today. And probably in a week or two, we will compile the information of all the information related to assessments and the coursework, and then we'll hand it over to EduQual.
All right, okay. Well, thank you for your time, and I will see you soon. Do we have your consent to post this online so that
Okay,
others
sir.
can have the courage to say, okay, I can do this,
Yes, sure, for sure.
All right, awesome. So we will get the written consent from you once it's done. Then we will
Okay.
post it because EduQual asks us that the consent needs to be taken from the students. That's why we're asking you, right? That's a process. So once you allow us, then only we will post it. Just like when you go to any
Yes.
university, you go through the process, right? So they put out your dissertations, your past research and everything for others to see. So we will put out your presentation and your, interview and presentation out there for other students to understand the process of what they have to go through, so on and so forth. So that helps them prepare themselves in a better, in a better fashion, right? Okay. Well, thank you for your time again, and I'm looking forward in terms of seeing you, getting successful in the industry. Do not stop your learning journey. This is my piece of advice. Keep on learning because there's a lot you have to learn,
Inshallah.
right? And keep on continue growing because if you stop the learning process, you will not be able to be successful and go up the organization ladder. So complete the AI, complete all the Razzak labs of AI ops. That's not part of EduQual, but it will soon become part of EduQual, right? Because we are pushing everyone towards excellence. And the other thing is don't stop the learning journey. Do the offensive, do the blockchain. Keep on learning because this is the most important thing. Because so that wherever you go, whether you have to do offensive or blockchain or whatever applications there are, you're fully prepared. And there's a lot you have to learn. Trust me.
Inshallah.
Right? Inshallah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time again. And Yusuf, thank you. And everyone else, Sonara and Zonara, thank you for your time. I will see you all in the next interview. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.